If we're going to reduce climate change, we need to start rethinking the big issues like how we produce energy, how we power our cities, heat our homes, and how we ship things across. A new innovation of an old process that a handful of companies and countries are starting to take pretty seriously is green hydrogen. And today we're going to learn more about it and what kind of uses it has. Hey everybody, I'm Alice Ford, an environmentalist dedicated to helping us all learn a little bit more about science, nature, and wildlife. So if these are things that you care about, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on those bell notifications. I post new videos every Wednesday and I would love it if you joined our community here. So you've probably heard of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, which use stored hydrogen to power the motor, similar in the way that a gas or diesel vehicle works. Now, these types of vehicles have been around for a pretty long time, but they've still really not taken off in the private vehicle sector. But some of the innovators are actually taking this idea of the hydrogen fuel cell and reimagining them on a much, much bigger scale. So big, in fact, that it could power cities, manufacturing, and commercial shipping. Now, hydrogen gas has until recently usually been created in a process that uses oil or coal. So its production has never really been green, but what they call gray hydrogen. But new developments are actually changing that. Green hydrogen uses renewable energy to produce hydrogen from water instead of fossil fuels, and it's taking off around the globe. Its boosters say that the fuel could play an important role in decarbonizing hard-to-electrify sectors of the economy, such as long-haul trucking, aviation, and even heavy manufacturing. Now, hydrogen could be a way forward without needing nuclear or natural gas. Hydrogen supply is unlimited and can actually be produced or transported elsewhere, which is a huge game changer. Unlike batteries that are unable to store large quantities of electricity for extended periods of time, hydrogen can actually be produced from excess renewable energy and stored in large quantities for a long time. We could store it in tanks inside caves. We could store it, in pipelines. There's so many options here that aren't available for batteries. So pound for pound, hydrogen actually contains almost 3 times as much energy as fossil fuels. So less of it is actually needed for the same amount of energy output. And a particular advantage of green hydrogen is that it can actually be produced wherever there is water and electricity, i.e. wherever there is sun and wind, and in some places even where there is trash, in turn generating more electricity or heat, which we can then use in manufacturing. So according to the International Energy Agency, the industrial sector is responsible for more than 1/3 of the world's energy consumption, while cement production alone uses 7% of global carbon emissions. And industrial companies are particularly well suited for low-cost, large-scale hydrogen utilization, given the substantial energy requirements and notable carbon dioxide emissions. So switching some of these industries over to hydrogen fuel could be a big change in the way the world works. And there are a handful of companies and countries putting a lot of time and money into developing more efficient ways to create green hydrogen. One company is called Heliogen, and it even caught the attention of Bill Gates, who actually became an investor in this futuristic company that could make big waves in the renewable energy, and is located actually right here in California. So according to Heliogen, their sunlight refinery actually uses mirrors to reflect the sun's rays, and it's a barrier-breaking concentrated solar energy system. It's actually being developed to unlock the power of sunlight to replace fossil fuels in new ways, not just through solar power. So the system is powered by AI, and it's a modular system that aims to deliver low-cost renewable energy in the form of heat, power, and hydrogen fuel, whenever it's needed and however it's needed. The advanced AI is unique to Heliogen's breakthrough technology, and it precisely aligns an array of mirrors that actually reflect the sunlight to a target on top of a sunlight refinery tower. So I know that was a mouthful, but basically this baseline system provides industrial-grade heat capable of replacing fossil fuels in industrial processes, including the production of cement, steel, and petrochemicals, which will be an absolute game changer if we can get more companies to replace oil, coal, and natural gas. With this technology, we can actually have cleaner air and healthier communities. Heliogen's technology is also able to create power generation through the addition of supercritical CO2 and green hydrogen fuel production in combination with an electrolyzer. So unlike batteries, this fuel could actually be stored and shipped to places all over the United States and potentially even the world. Just a few days ago, Bloom Energy announced that they would be actually teaming up with Heliogen to produce green hydrogen using only concentrated solar power and water, further accelerating the world's progress toward a zero carbon future. Now, I know that I don't talk about the stock market on this channel, but if I were you, I would start looking closely into a lot of these companies I'm talking about today, because they are going to be taking off substantially in the near future. And I don't work for these companies, so this isn't insider trading. This is just my thoughts on the green revolution and where we're going to see things heading. So if you want to invest in some green stocks, this one and one I'm going to talk about in a few minutes is another one you should keep your eye on. So California as a whole is said to be investing $230 million on hydrogen projects before 2023. And the world's largest green hydrogen project is actually being built just up the road from me here in Los Angeles in Lancaster by an energy company called SGH2. This innovative plant will actually use waste gasification, combusting 42,000 tons of recycled paper waste annually to produce green hydrogen. Now, the only caveat with this one is because it doesn't use electrolysis and renewable energy, its hydrogen is actually cost competitive with gray hydrogen, but we are going to have more environmental benefits from this. The really cool thing to me is that this Lancaster plant is actually processing 40,000 tons of waste annually. So the city of Lancaster is actually supplying all the feedstock of recyclable solid waste from their communities, which would normally end up in a landfill, and it's saving them about $50 to $75 per ton by not having to put it in a landfill. And just think about it. We have such an ever-growing waste problem that we're facing in cities around the world, especially with this pandemic. There's so much more plastic, so much more recyclable material. So being able to produce green hydrogen from trash or recyclable materials is also a big win-win in my mind. Now, this type of waste to energy facility also takes a much smaller footprint and can be used in places where wind or solar may not be a way of generating electricity. You know, those types of plants obviously take up a lot of square footage on the ground. So having a smaller facility that can just take garbage from the local communities, burn it, capture it, and turn it into green hydrogen is also a really great innovation. The U.S. Department of Energy is also putting up to $100 million into the research and development of hydrogen in fuel cells, which is really just a drop in the barrel. But we're certainly not the only country looking into this type of technology. Over in the European Union, they're investing $430 billion in green hydrogen by 2030. So a lot more than we're doing here in the United States. But they're doing this because they want to hit their goals of their Green Deal. Also in Chile, Japan, Germany, Saudi Arabia, and Australia, they are making major investments into green hydrogen. This is another company to keep your eye on. It's called Siemens Energy. They have several renewable energy developments around the world, from wind and solar down in Chile to some green energy and green hydrogen projects that they're doing over in Europe and the Middle East. Currently, they're collaborating with the Dubai Electricity and Water Department, as well as the Expo 2020 Dubai, to establish the first solar-powered green hydrogen plant in the United Arab Emirates. It's called the Mohammed bin Rashid AI Maktoum Solar Park. That was a mouthful. And it's going to bring Dubai and the UAE, which is a city and a place that's almost inhospitable, into the green revolution. So I see this as being a really huge innovation. The UAE plans to increase the contribution of clean energy in the country's total energy mix from 25% to 50% by 2050. And over in Saudi Arabia, they're actually planning to build a futuristic city with flying cars, robots, all powered by green hydrogen. So green hydrogen sounds pretty great, but there are a few barriers that make it in the way of its future development here in the United States and potentially in Europe and other places that aren't just building things from scratch. So hydrogen gas can actually be shipped through pipelines currently in the United States. There are actually only a few thousand miles of pipelines equipped to transport hydrogen in its pure form. So the thing with pure hydrogen is that it actually can't be shipped in most of the established pipelines that we have, because it needs to be sent basically in a specific metal, usually platinum, in order for it to not make the metal brittle. So stakeholders in green hydrogen really hope that we can actually use some of the existing natural gas pipeline infrastructure that we have in the United States, which I think is about 3 million miles. However, most are privately held by other energy corporations, and I highly doubt they're going to give them over willingly. So we'll see what happens with this as more companies like Heliogen start to be developed. Not to mention, to distribute pure hydrogen, as I said, natural gas pipelines would need to be retrofitted. And this would cost an enormous amount of money. So I'm not sure what the solution is here, but I think in order for us to get hydrogen into our homes, something like this would need to happen. The other thing that we could do is actually combine pure hydrogen gas with an additive, which would allow it to go through these pipelines, but then at its endpoints or at the gas companies in each community, it would then have to be separated and then put back into the system to be used in people's homes. So there's a couple different things that we have to be thinking about as we're talking about this green energy, but it's got so many benefits that I'm really excited about it. I know we've been talking a lot about using hydrogen in our homes and industry, but let's talk a little bit more about how fuel cell vehicles, which would be a great alternative to electric vehicles, are developing in this country. Now, the reason these are better than electric vehicles are because they don't have toxic batteries. We don't need to be mining for lithium. Issues I find with electric vehicles is that we still don't have anyone recycling these lithium batteries, which could be a potentially devastating thing to think about that I think no one's really talking about, because we obviously want everyone to get off fossil fuels. So a challenge for fuel cell vehicles, however, is that they actually have been challenged to store enough hydrogen, which is about 5 to 13 kilograms of compressed hydrogen gas in the vehicle to achieve the same amount of conventional driving range of about 300 miles. Now, currently there are only about 3 hydrogen fuel cell vehicles on the market to the public. One is the Toyota Myra, which I've actually driven myself, and it's awesome. There's also the Hyundai Nero, which is an SUV, and then there's the Honda Clarity, which in most cases are only available to people that live here in California, and I think a little bit of the northeastern corridor as well, where there happens to be a network of hydrogen refueling stations. But if we could get more hydrogen pipelines to become a reality, then hydrogen fuel cell vehicles could take off in new ways. And I think that Honda, Toyota, and Hyundai are actually kind of banking on this because they haven't given up producing these vehicles. They continue to innovate and they continue to hold on to these types of vehicles as a really important emission-free vehicle. So whether hydrogen can succeed really depends on the willingness of stakeholders, automakers, and governments who are willing to invest in this technology. Now, Honda hasn't sold many Clarity fuel cell vehicles. I think they've sold about 1,500 in 4 years. But them and Toyota and Hyundai are actively working with elected officials, NGOs, utilities, and energy companies to increase access to hydrogen. And there are a number of refueling stations that have been built or are almost complete in the Northeast, with Colorado, Oregon, Washington State, and Texas eyed as the next areas of growth. Now, the big movement that I see for green hydrogen will come in the form of industrial productions, mass-scale energy, and transportation on a large scale like semis and shipping. Now, this is also the sector where we need the most help in making things more green. So if we can get more countries and more companies to start developing solar, waste, or mirror-based energy harnessing that can in turn create green hydrogen, we can actually start powering not only industrial manufacturing, but countrywide electric grids, semi-trucks, and even large container ships, which would be awesome. Now, hydrogen can also be used with fuel cells to power anything that uses electricity, such as electric vehicles and electronic devices. And unlike batteries, as I said, hydrogen fuel cells don't need to be recharged. They won't run down as long as they continue to have hydrogen fuel. So the prospect of green hydrogen is really, really exciting. And I hope you guys are with me on this because it could really be a great future innovation and a way for us to get off fossil fuels. Just imagine how much people will benefit if we can transform like petrochemical plants and large-scale industrial polluters into users of this green fuel. Our communities and our ecosystems would benefit greatly. And I, for one, am super excited to see what the future holds for this green fuel. And I hope you guys enjoyed learning about this with me. You know, one of the things I love about making this series is that not only do I get to share like these lesser, I think, known, lesser publicized things with you guys, but I also get to learn a ton, and I really enjoy all of your guys' questions and comments and engagement here. So keep it up. Please put your questions down below if there are things that you want to learn more about when it comes to wildlife, nature, you know, energy, anything science related, please put a comment down below. Make sure if you're not subscribed, you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up too. As always, I'm Alice Ford. This is Nature News, and I will see you guys in the next video.